Hello, ladies and gentlemen interested in knives. I've got a new model for you that I'd like to show you. It is a knife that was specifically designed for the German market because in Germany we are not allowed to use one-handed opening knives if they do have a locking mechanism. Therefore, our knives that we carry around should be two-hand opening only or one-hand opening and non-locking. And one of these knives is this model right here, which is the Müller Messer MSP Jäger Spezial Droppoint. I know that was a long name and it's made by a very small company. It's, as far as I know, just one guy called Reinhard Müller, and he's designing knives and making knives that are explicitly, laid out for the German market. The knife comes in this very simple black cardboard box. It costs around 155 euros and you can buy it at, Müller Messer, at the Müller Messer website. Now, when I first took this knife out of the box, I was like, ooh, that's a heavy knife. Really, this is already a very solidly built knife. It's not a small folder, it's not a slim folder, it's basically the kind of full-sized folder that targets at replacing a fixed blade knife. And still, this is even heavier than it looks. I'd like to start off with a size comparison. Here you have the Müller MSP Jäger Spezial Droppoint next to my Victorinox Spartan. Here you have it next to my Spyderco Dragonfly, next to my Spyderco UK PK. This is next to my two-handed variant of the Manly Peak. As you see, the Manly Peak is definitely the longer knife among the two, yet the Müller MSP is quite more substantial when it comes to the build dimensions. And finally, to top it off, because I think this is basically the category that this knife falls in, my Cold Steel AD15. Like, really, it's okay. The AD15 is larger, no doubt about that. The AD15 is the larger knife, but they both target at being carried instead of a fixed blade knife and doing the work of a fixed blade knife because of their overall construction that is very robust, very rigid, and their locking mechanisms that can take lots of abuse. Okay, I'm gonna start off with the blade. The blade is almost perfect, or I'd even say it is perfect. It's made from CPM S90V steel. CPM S90V steel is a steel with high carbon content and very high vanadium content. It is a stainless steel, but it is not as stainless as M390, for example, because M390 has way more chromium in it than S90V does. On the other hand, S90V acts as a more tough steel than M390 because the high carbon and vanadium content lead to the formation of vanadium carbides, and they really are hard components of a steel. So they make for some very high edge retention and some very difficult sharpening in the end. But I think S90V is just a fine steel here. If you get this knife, you should make sure that you know how to sharpen it, or that you have the right sharpening equipment to, get an edge back on this rather well, hard to sharpen steel. Okay, the blade shape is a drop point, which basically resembles the blade shape of the Fellneven F1 Pro, in my opinion, except for the fact that we don't have a that we don't have a convex grind here. We just have a standard flat grind with a V-edge and about 0.5 millimeters of thickness right behind the V-edge. So this knife does slice. It's not a bad cutter. It slices much better than the AD15, for example, which is way thicker behind the edge, even though I narrowed it down. Yeah, I think this is just an overall very solid and well-performing multi-purpose knife that you can cut everything with and carry it around legally here in Germany. Now the blade is made perfectly symmetrical. There are no flaws at all. It tends to catch some fingerprints, but that's okay, I guess. That's due to the satin finish. And you've got this very mild jimping here, which I really enjoy. It's more like a tactile point of orientation than it does really bite into your thumb or so. And of course, since it's a knife for lefties and righties, you've got two nail nicks, one on each side. As far as I know, this knife is manufactured in Italy. It's a layout from Reinhard Müller, but it's manufactured in Maniago, Italy. And you can really tell that by the amazing quality that this knife has. This is absolutely flawless. Not just the blade, also the handle. It is perfectly done. The G10 is perfectly milled out. You've got absolutely no sharp edges. Everything is just exactly where it is supposed to be. So this knife is manufactured in a very good way and also quality controlled in a very good way. Really, it's amazing. The handle. Yeah, the handle, or let's start with the connection. The blade is running on two phosphor bronze washers on each side, which makes for a very smooth operation. Yet, since the backlock on this knife is very stiff, you have this hard stop at about 90 degrees and then the knife just snaps shut on you. And as I said, it's a two-hand operation knife, and you really want to use two hands to operate this knife. It's not easy to do it one-handed. It's almost impossible. That's what it's designed for. Yeah, the handle. The handle consists of these beautifully milled G10 scales on top and two thick, heavy and robust 1.5 millimeter stainless steel liners that are basically the reason why this knife is going to be a fucking tank. Yeah, seriously, it's heavy. It's really heavy. It's a heavy knife, I already said that. But the overall dimension of the handle, the fact that this is not a slim handle, but more of a handle that resembles a fixed blade, makes for a very comfortable grip onto this knife. Seriously, there's absolutely no sharp edges. There's nothing that is annoying me when grabbing this knife, and when really grabbing this knife hard. It's just perfect. Like, complete opposite is my Manly Peak, which I really like, but the handle is just slim, square, and simple. And if you really grab this hard, it's not a comfortable handle. On the other hand, this one is. This one definitely melts into your hand. You've got a solid grip, and if you have to do some more work with it, you're going to be fine. I'm sure about that. What I don't like about it is that it lacks the option for a pocket clip. Now, I know that this knife was laid out to be used as a hunting knife, and apparently many hunters do not really want a pocket clip, or they're not interested in having a pocket clip on their knives. Oh, come on. There we go. But I would have wished to at least have the option to install a pocket clip on this one. Although I must say that without a pocket clip, it's fine. I carry it in my pocket and it's not annoying. It's basically just there, invisibly. And it does what it is supposed to do. Yeah. Alright. What else is there to say? Another point I have to criticize is the backlock, because this is not a classical backlock mechanism. Like you have the backspacer, you have a spring, and the spring is pushing against the backlock lever from beneath. No, this is differently made. This is basically, you have cutouts on the inside of these two thick liners, and they're connected with a pin, which is this pin right here, and then the backlock lever is being pushed upwards, by these two cutouts in the liners, which makes for an incredibly stiff backlock. Like unnecessary stiff backlock. I have two knives that feature the cold steel triad lock, and the cold steel triad lock is, in my opinion, already uncomfortable to use because you have to push so hard. I know that many women can't even push it. They need both hands to operate the triad lock, and that's just over the top. There's no reason for a backlock being this hard. It's not like it's benefiting stability or anything like that. You could just do it a simple but stiff spring. It's still easily operatable. It's not going to go anywhere. But this, I have strong fingers, but I can't, I really struggle pushing this with my index finger. I really need my thumb for that, and seriously, that's not the way it should have been. It should have been done. It should have been done the classical way. So they could have had a more easy to operate backlock here, and of course they could have saved tons of weight by just milling out these two steel liners, because they didn't do that. There's just like the cutout for the integral springs. They were made, but no other cutouts are in here, and that's why this thing weighs about 20 grams more than it actually should. And on top of that, you still have this full steel backspacer here, which, well, fits in beautifully, no doubt about that, but it's just dead weight right here. You could have replaced this with some kind of carbon fiber backspacer or anything light for decoration purposes, since this is really just there for decoration, probably comfort, but does not serve any real purpose. So this knife is heavier than it could be, and, well, it's a pocket knife. They should be as light as possible, especially if it's this easy. It's an interesting approach for designing a backlock, but I think they would have been better off by going the classical way with this knife right here. Yeah. What else can I say about it? I think, given the price, given the overall quality, and especially given the high comfort when operating this knife, when holding this knife in hands, is absolutely worth the price. This is a very, very well-designed knife. It's a very robust knife. Like, seriously, they've done everything right. There's no sharp edges or no 90 degrees, edges on the backlock lever or on the back of the blade. It's everything does have a radius to it, so stress is not going to crack your parts. Fuck you. There you go. Look at this. It's a good knife. It's a robust knife, and I can recommend it. Thank you very much, guys. See you next time. Bye.